This is a real-life story. However, we will say you should exercise caution listening to this story, as it contains some vulgar languages and negative perspective. I got admitted into a super prestigious university for my MPhil. Of course I was over the moon. I had been doing research before somewhere else and had such a great time there, as I loved being in the lab. Well, things were very different in my new place. You would have thought you were walking into a funeral when you walked through those lab doors. No one talked much, no one laughed, no one seemed happy. As a new student I didn't know where to find anything, and the lab technician had quit before I joined, so I went to ask things to the postdoc who was extremely rude and unpleasant from the first day. Myself and the other new students felt awful when we had to ask her anything, but we needed some initial guidance to do our work that we weren't getting at all. Another student told me I shouldn't ask questions, and that's how things were. With the supervisor, things were fine at the beginning because I just never saw him. I went home for Christmas, and when I came back, he started weekly meetings because he was extremely worried I took that break. He then kept asking if I was sure I had what it takes, and constantly questioning my potential. I was lucky my experiments were working at that time, and I knew I had pretty good results already despite what he said, otherwise I would have probably given up. As a matter of fact, for a few times he had suggested I should probably apply to get a lesser degree or look for funds to change my degree into a PhD. The MPhil student that started the year before I joined were all persuaded to change to a PhD, because he said the student wouldn't have enough result to get an MPhil degree within that time frame. Consequently, that poor student got stuck 3 more years with the bastard. I was not going to fall into that trap, but there was just no way we wouldn't get imposter syndrome around the professor. He once told me that because I was an MPhil student, I didn't have the luxury of time PhD students had, so I should be the first one in the lab and the last one to leave, and that he would work all weekend. I was thinking to myself, surely, it's proportionate, or does he want me to get a PhD within my fucking 12 months? Anyway, I ignored his request because I had a life. On the contrary, my mentor who's a super accomplished researcher told me he would only be in lab from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and so I knew it was about the quality of time, not the quantity. There were experiments that did require me to be in lab for 12 hours, and I often had to go in on Sundays to get my samples ready to go on the Monday, but I find extremely important to have quality time out of the department. Every 2 to 3 months, we were required to give a presentation in our lab meetings. To add some context, everyone was terrified when it was their turn for this presentation. There was zero encouragement to the people presenting, no smiles, no nods, no claps at the end of the presentations. I had never seen that before. At my friend's lab, her supervisor got champagne, so everyone cheered the person who presented at the end. Well, not at my lab. So, when it was my turn to present it in the journal club, the presentation wasn't what he expected, because my nerves were high. I was probably rushing through, so I was done within 40 minutes instead of the 60 minutes I was supposed to take. Guess what? He was shouting at me in the end. I can't remember what he said, I was in shock, but I had the feeling he was expecting me to cry and would go on and on verbally abusing me until he got what he wanted. But I didn't cry, I just stared at him super blank, because it just felt so surreal what this guy was doing. I did feel embarrassed though because everyone could probably hear everything outside his office. After some months, it was my turn to present again, this time my own research work and results. I prepared super well, the presentation was good, some of my colleagues told me afterwards I had done a pretty good job. My supervisor then told me I didn't seem very enthusiastic about my work. However, the question is how he expected anyone to sound enthusiastic in such a toxic environment? The anxiety we all felt before having to give these presentations because we were so scared of his reaction was unbelievable. For sure, almost everyone left that lab mentally scarred. There was a particularly memorable experience. Every Friday we had our weekly meetings, and to be honest I dreaded it. Fridays became my nightmare. Eventually, it got to a point I just couldn't get myself to walk into the lab again, though I had planned to run some final experiments. I just didn't have the strength anymore to see him, so I never went back. I never spoke to him again, I didn't respond to his emails. I worked on my dissertation, applied to my degree without his consent, got my viva, I passed. I got my MPhil. It sounds like a happy ending, but it wasn't. I don't think the degree was worth it, I would have been better off in a less prestigious institution that didn't have that toxic environment. It took me months, probably years to build back my confidence and recover, and trust me, confidence is just as important as competence. And as you can guess it, I completely ruled out a PhD, and I would never ask for his reference anyway, which I thought was essential for me to get admitted into a PhD. This experience completely put me off academia. The supervisor is still there, bullying people. He was supposed to retire the year after I left, but I found out he had recruited new PhD students, so I guess he wasn't planning on retiring at least in the next 4 years. I hate to say it, but sometimes I Google him hoping to see an obituary. So far, no luck. Sorry if this is a bit negative, but there was no way to share the experience without putting in all the experience and contexts.
The experiences of the MPhil student in this story serve as a reminder of the importance of a supportive and nurturing academic environment, particularly during PhD studies. Research studies have shown that graduate students face high levels of stress, anxiety, and depression during their studies, and poor supervision exacerbates these issues. Pritchard and Hawkins, 2019. Therefore, it is essential for supervisors to provide constructive feedback, support, and encouragement to help students achieve their goals. Moreover, the story illustrates the negative effects of a toxic academic environment on health and well-being. Research studies have shown that graduate students are vulnerable to health issues such as anxiety and imposter syndrome due to the high-pressure environment and expectations. Levick et al., 2017. In this case, the students suffered from these issues due to the supervisor's harsh criticism and lack of support, which made it challenging to feel confident in their abilities and undermined their self-esteem. Institutions need to recognize the health challenges faced by graduate students and provide adequate support to address these issues. Graduate studies are challenging, and students should not have to navigate a toxic academic environment in addition to their academic workload. The importance of a supportive and nurturing academic environment cannot be overstated, and supervisors have a significant role to play in shaping the academic experiences of their students. In fact, a study by Gardner et al., 2018, found that graduate students who received more support from their advisors had higher levels of satisfaction with their graduate programs and were more likely to complete their degrees. Therefore, it is crucial for institutions and supervisors to prioritize the well-being of graduate students and provide the necessary support and resources for their success.